Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Calls. This is the 2025 Masters Data Dive Show. We have a lot to cover. We're going to take our first look at the forecast for the week. It is quite a doozy, and it's going to change how we are going to look at some of the tournament this week. We'll get into that, of course. We're going to be using the pricing from DraftKings throughout our research tonight. Speaking of research, I will, at the end of the show you the patterns that I found in my research throughout this week to help us figure out any outrights that we might want to make. And we'll start the show in a way we weren't able to last night, thanks to Gabe. So we have a lot to cover. Let's get into it. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from FantasyNational.com. It is the best golf analytic tool out there for your money. There are a lot of great golf analytic tools out there. No doubt about that. I just simply believe Fantasy National is the best. Go check out FantasyNational.com. You will not regret it. In the description of the video, there are links to all the social media. First off, my X and Instagram, as I alluded to, I posted some research regarding the past 12 winners of the Masters going back to 2012. Some course information, some patterns that those winners all share, and the players in the field this week who fit that or those patterns. There were 7 of them. I'll get into that later on this evening as well. But if you want to see the full list of criteria and the players in the field this week who fit that, who fit those patterns, as I did for the Masters and every week on the PGA Tour, give me a follow at your preferred social media site. X is also where I place my weekly betting cards and top player usage in the DFS contest I play. That comes out every Wednesday after the DFS Tactics show. So if you want to see the players that I've wagered this week, I've certainly got a pretty big betting card for the Masters, thanks to a couple of really, really solid weeks, the past 2 weeks in the Texas part of the schedule. If you want to see that, you want to see the players I'm using most often in my lineups, give me a follow over at X. Lastly, for social media, Gabe's handle is in the description. He writes a great article called The Fringe. We've worked together now for quite a while. Really cannot recommend it enough to you. I wouldn't recommend it if I didn't read it myself, believe in it. So go check out his article. It is free to subscribe to, by the way. And make sure you're following him over on social media, as that is where we place our weekly write-ups for the tournament every week. So obviously we'll have our Masters picks and our descriptions on why we're choosing the players we are for the categories over on his social media site. So make sure you're supporting him, following him over on social media. And then lastly, for this intro, we are live, chat's open. Always want to hear from you all. As you've done more of your research, have you put any wagers in? Who do you think the favorite is? Is it Scotty? Is it Rory? Is it somebody else? Do you think you have an interesting play that perhaps not a lot of people are talking about? What are you wanting to see tonight in terms of statistics and information? Would love to be able to help you all out with that as well. So feel free to jump in and chat when I want to hear from you all. And if you're not able to watch the show live, put your thoughts and opinions in the comments. I'll always get to those as well. So let's get into it. Let's dig into the weeds of the data for the 2025 Masters. And normally we start on a Monday evening with the weather. Good evening, Derek. Thanks for jumping to chat. Very much appreciated. Hopefully you've had a good day, ready for some Masters research, and are partaking in the NCAA championship game. I am not watching with Duke having lost Sunday night or Saturday night, excuse me. I know you're a Tennessee fan. They got knocked out by Houston, much like Duke did. You like Sergio and Phil, but are both over 15% owned. I haven't looked at anything in terms of projected ownerships. I usually wait for Gabe in that regard, and he sends his projected ownerships out on Wednesday. So I usually don't do anything with ownerships until then. But Sergio makes a lot of sense. I know he's been playing fairly well on the over on Live. Phil Mickelson, with his course history and whatnot. So it makes some sense. I think I would be higher on Sergio than Phil of those two, but as is customary for me, since I don't collect live data, all of the live guys are going to be much, much lower in my rankings, and I'm just going to be real upfront about that. If they don't have data, it's hard for me to evaluate. I don't collect live data. I certainly have a couple of guys, from live that I'll make sure I use in rosters and whatnot, but don't have any strong opinions on live players since they aren't playing on the tour. We start this evening with the GCSA tournament fact sheet, and this is all thanks to Gabe, who was able to find this year's tournament fact sheet somehow. Best way to put that, because I don't believe he is signed up for the GCSAA, and he was able to access this. So again, big thanks to Gabe, and you really are missing out if you aren't following him over on social media. Subscribe to his article. He has a lot of great information. We're going to cover this very, very quickly because not a lot has changed. We covered this a little bit last night. This is an Alistair McKenzie and Bobby Jones design. The yardage actually in between 75 and 7,600. This is 7,555 yards. It's a traditional par 72, meaning 4 par 3s, 4 par 5s. We are on bent grass. Do note that Augusta National does not specify the specific subtype or strand of bent. Just says bent. The rough is very, very short, not even 1.5 inches in the cut of it, so not very long. Green size 6,500 square feet. I'm rounding up just a little bit to make numbers nice, round, and easy. A lot of fairway. These fairways are very, very forgiving. 50 yards wide on average in the landing areas. 44 bunkers, 5 holes with water in play. I might have said 6 last night. 5 holes with water in play. Most of the time this comes into play on the approach to the green. But yeah, that is a look at the tournament fact sheet for Augusta National and the 2025 Masters. So nothing out of the ordinary here. We'll close that. And now we'll go to the forecast for Augusta National. And the biggest thing you need to know early on this week is that they are getting hammered with rain. I mean, absolutely pummeled. You mentioned this last night, Derek, living fairly local to Augusta in the grand scheme of things, fairly local to Augusta. So you mentioned that last night. They are still getting pummeled with rain today. And you notice that they're not going to get a whole lot of wind, particularly when the sun is out in the lead up to the tournament. Tuesday, Wednesday, they will get some wind and some gusty winds, but it is very, very early, meaning the sun's not out to help it dry the course. Augusta National is going to be pretty darn soft by the time Thursday rolls around. It just is. It's going to be pretty soft. And Friday, there's a little bit of rain in the forecast as well. So we need to be mindful of that moving forward this week. Just how soft Thursday in particular, and probably a little bit of Friday, is going to be as well. It's just going to be soft, meaning the course is going to play extremely long. I mentioned last night how the fairways are cut from green to tee box, which is entirely different than the majority of golf courses are cut. They normally are cut fairway to, tee box to green. Augusta National is the opposite. They mow it backwards essentially to limit the rollout. And if the course is going to be extremely soft, it's going to play even longer. So we're going to be looking at a lot of long course metrics tonight in anticipation for a very, very soft Thursday, probably most of Friday as well. Depending on how much rain and how well it drains and dries this week, they actually might have ball in hand Thursday. I don't want to, that's only speculation. I don't have any insider knowledge with that, but that is something we'll need to keep in mind moving forward, is that there could be ball in hand Thursday. So with that, there's a look at the forecast. It's going to be pretty chilly, particularly on the weekend. Highs in the mid-60s. The mornings are going to be really cold for Georgia this time of year, I would think. Mornings are going to be in the 40s. So chilly, damp, wet, particularly Thursday. It's altering the way we're going to be looking at things, particularly tonight, moving forward to Wednesday. So there's a look at the forecast. We'll go ahead and go to the Fantasy National player page view, and one of the, is it necessary? Absolutely not. But one of the fun little things, being a member of Fantasy National, you get the benefit, puts you exactly into the master spirit with the green and gold background. We're going to take a look at a couple of things here. Let's take a look at long course proficiency, particularly Thursday. This is going to be very, very important. With the live guys only having, 4, 8, maybe 12 rounds from like Bryson and stuff, I'm actually going to go to 2023 on this. Now understand, this is incorporating a lot of rounds for some players. I'm just trying to get enough rounds to make players like Brooks and John Rahm, the live guys, to have, a handful of rounds for us. So on long courses, going back to the beginning of 2023, our top performers in the field this week for the Masters: Xander, Scotty Scheffler, Rory, Colin Morikawa, Corey Connors, Sungjae, Hideki, Tyrrell Hatton, Bryson, and Max Homa. I have seen that there is one field change, so I'll go ahead and mark that. Vijay Singh has withdrawn due to injury. I don't know if anyone was excited about rostering or betting Vijay, but just for your information as the viewer, Vijay Singh has withdrawn. So there's a look at your top performers on long courses going back to 2023. We're going to do the same for difficult. Having said that, because of that forecast and how much rain Augusta is getting, supposedly right this moment, everything that I've heard for the entirety of today is that they've been pummeled with rain. I don't know how difficult Thursday and Friday in particular are going to be. It is Augusta National. It is a generally difficult course. But, for example, these winning scores have been, Scotty at 11, Obear finishing second at 7 under. You had 12 from John Rahm 2 years ago, 10 from Scotty. I could potentially see, this is the fall. Sorry, so that I shouldn't pull that one up. I could potentially see mid-teens if the course is indeed really, really soft. A lot of the defense of Augusta National is how firm, particularly the greens are. Now, the greens will still be fast, lightning fast, in fact, putting-wise, but they could be a little bit more receptive with all this rain, and particularly errant tee shots aren't going to be as punished because the ball's just simply not going to roll out into the pine straw that Augusta National likes to keep. That's why they keep the rough so short, is they want to punish errant drives by going into the pine straw. And if the course is soft, you're just not going to get a whole lot of run out and roll out like that. So I don't know how difficult, particularly Thursday and Friday, are going to play. I do think this is very similar to what we saw last week at the Valero, where the weekend really got difficult at TPC San Antonio. I think this is shaping up to be similar to that. So when rounds have been difficult relative to par, going back to the beginning of 2023, your top performers, Scotty, Rory, Xander, same top three from long courses as well. Scotty, Rory, Xander, Colin Morikawa, so top four are the same, just in a different order. Patrick Cantlay, Russell Henley, John Rahm, Wyndham Clark, Tommy Fleetwood, Victor Hovland, and Tyrrell Hatton are your top 11 in terms of total performance when rounds have been difficult going back to the beginning of 2023. Okay, with that, we are going to leave these filters on, and we're going to go what we normally do. We're going to go into the deep statistical dive of Augusta National. Now, these numbers in particular won't mean a whole lot. So what I'm going to do, let me bring up my regular comparison course file because I keep I keep all the majors separate. So I'll have this off to the side. You see, I don't have anything listed here for the Masters. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to be on this summary page for these averages. So I'll have this off to the side to compare how Augusta National plays to these. Again, the statistics are proprietary for Augusta National, so we don't have anything with shot length. We don't have any strokes gained, off the tee, approach around the green, anything like that. So we're just going to be looking at all four of those metrics tonight. So we're going to start with driving distance. And I do think this is going to be a pretty darn big factor, particularly because if you remember Tiger's win in 2019, it was somewhat soft that year. And you see just how much driving distance mattered that year. It's a huge outlier, but it was pretty soft that year if memory serves correctly. This 10.6 or 10.7 is a decent amount higher than the PGA Tour average. The closest I can see to that 10.6 is from Torrey Pines. Torrey Pines is a 10.8, and Torrey is 38% more important than the average full field course. So distance is a big factor around Augusta, and I think it's only heightened due to how soft the course is going to be. Fairways, not really all that important. They have been the past couple of years, but traditionally they haven't been. Again, these fairways are extremely wide, so players aren't necessarily as cognizant of being in the fairway. They're not having as much trouble hitting the fairway. First off, the rough isn't long, so they're not as worried about going or being out of the fairway. It's only on the really massive foul balls, the really, really errant tee shots that they have to worry. They get into the pine straw and perhaps blocked out by trees. But this .83 is fairly significantly lower than the PGA Tour average. Greens right on PGA Tour average. Good drives gained significantly lower. It is really about the distance here at Augusta National. I mean, look at the previous winners here. Scotty, John Rahm. I mean, Hideki moves it off the tee. He's fairly long. Ludwig Aubert, second last year, moves it off the tee. Most of the time, players are decent with driving distance when they win or when they compete well here at Augusta National. You do have, your exceptions to that rule. Patrick Reed, Jordan Spieth, they have all-world short games. That's why we don't want to ignore the around the green this week either. So we're going to be focused on driving distance in this page view. We'll move to scoring, and I was all today ready to talk about bogey avoidance. I do think we probably want to look at some birdies and maybe even some birdies are better gained due to how soft the course is probably going to be Thursday and Friday. But the bogey avoidance is generally what you want to look at. This is fairly significantly higher than the PGA Tour average. This is quite a bit lower. But I think we're going to adjust because of how soft the course is going to be. So we're probably even going to look at some opportunities. If players know how soft the course is going to be, especially Thursday, they're going to go flag hunting a lot more than they normally would around here. So we're going to look at opportunities. Probably some birdies are better. We won't ignore the bogey avoidance either. Moving into par threes, fours, and five, you see historically, most of the par threes or par three scoring has come the 150 to 175, but even in the total par threes, this number is less than the PGA Tour average. So quite interesting to see that, but par threes just haven't carried a whole lot of weight here, at least in the past 12 years. Notice that I am not including the Dustin Johnson fall Masters, considering that was played at entirely different time in the year. So that one's just such a huge outlier to me. I didn't include it in the sample and the data. But otherwise, I mean, par threes have been pretty consistent and pretty consistently not very important. Instead, we're mainly looking at two particular ranges of par fours. We're looking at 400 to 450 and 450 to 5. Mainly, really, the 450 to 5. You see the 400 450 1.21 is just about the same as the totality of the par threes. So we'll be mainly looking at these two links here. And then in the par fives, we're looking at these two links here. Unfortunately, because the statistics are proprietary, nothing to do with proximity, and we absolutely are going to be looking at three-putt avoidance. That is always a big factor around Augusta National. So there's a look at the detailed data of what we can look at here at Augusta. So we'll move back to Fantasy National players in the field this week. Of course, we're not going to ignore the strokes gained. We're going to look at some off the tee. I'm still favoring long courses here for off the tee. So your top off the tee players on long courses have been Rory, Ludwig, Scotty Scheffler, Bryson, Xander, Minwoo Lee, Ben On, Kevin Yu, Colin Morikawa, and Wyndham Clark. So interesting to see 6,800 Ben On top 10 and off the tee, 6,300 Kevin Yu in the top 10 in terms of off the tee. Hey, good evening, Phil. Thanks for jumping in chat. Very much appreciated. Started the stream on time this evening, considering I was not having any microphone issues. Gosh, I can't talk. But I'm still appreciative that you jump into chat and that you take some time out to listen and interact with me. It is not ignored. I'm very appreciative that you take out the time to check out the stream and the show. It's very much appreciated. Who do you got tonight in the NCAA championship game? Do you have Florida or do you have Houston? Interested to hear that. And then anything else that you want to talk about for the Masters. So anyway, off the tee, this is probably what I'm going to be using, particularly with that forecast. Long story short, Phil, if you want the detailed information, make sure you catch the first maybe 20 minutes or so that you missed where we covered the forecast and whatnot. But long story short, Augusta's been pummeled with rain today, so the course is going to be pretty soft. It's going to play pretty long, especially Thursday and probably Friday as well. From Texas, so you got to go with H-Town. Houston looked really good. I mean, I'm a Duke fan. I don't think that's any surprise now after the past 3 weeks and wearing the fandom. But Houston was resilient, being down 6 with a minute to go Saturday night and coming back and beating Duke. So Um, you know, I think I picked Florida at the beginning of the tournament, despite the fact that Duke losing cost me my bracket challenge. I picked Florida. I thought they were the most complete team throughout the year, but Houston definitely deserved it. They definitely deserved to be there. Kevin Yu does hit it far. That you are correct with that. So that is someone to be perhaps interested in. And I can tell you, I'm pretty high on Kevin Yu, DFS wise, this week as a very, very cheap option. You just have to ignore the putter. How dumb do I have to be to have about 30% been on in my initial lineups? I don't think it's dumb. I mean, you see, especially if you're going to think that this is a big time off the tee thing. Generally, Augusta is a second shot course, which, you know, bidding on hasn't been horrible with his irons. So I don't think it's dumb. His irons haven't been great in 2025. But, I mean, he did top 20 this last year. So I don't think it's insane by any means, Phil. I can't say, you know, whether 30% is too much or too little or whatnot. I haven't started looking at my lineups yet, but I really don't hate that. I think I'm higher on Kevin Yu just because I think he'll be less owned and he's a little bit cheaper. But Ben on is up here. And he has some history here. There's your off the tee. We're going to look at irons. You can't ignore irons at Augusta National. Your top iron players. You know what? I think for the first time in a while, I think especially the first time this calendar year, I'm matching a lot of Straka and McIntyre. I'm going to warn, at least right now, and I haven't done anything with ownerships, Phil, but I've heard a lot of talk about Bobby Mack, so I don't think he's going to be as unique as you're thinking, is how I'm going to say that. I don't hate that at all. I think Bobby Mack's interesting, but I've heard a lot of people talk about Bobby Mack, so I'm thinking his ownership will be higher than what you're thinking. Do I like Pendrith? I've heard a few people talk about Pendrith as well. Despite his prodigious length, generally Pendrith performs better on shorter courses. He's been the number one off the tee guy in 2025, so that is something going for him. But generally, like other than Houston, which is obviously a very long course, a lot of his best finishes have been when it's short or when it's easy. Rocket Mortgage is easy. Not necessarily short, but easy. Shriners is very easy. I'm a little torn on Pendrith. And I'm going to tell you, because I've heard his name thrown out there by some people, Derek, I'm probably going to be lesser on him than others because of that ownership. And what Phil just mentioned is a big reason why. Pendrith seems to play better when it's easier. Take Pendrith top debutant. That's not a bad idea. I don't know what his odds are for that. I only put in my win wagers, so I haven't looked at top debutante market. I didn't look at top 20s or anything like that. I am pretty high on Kevin Yu, so if Kevin Yu has decent odds in terms of debutante and top 20, that's my first inclination. But we'll get into that when we get into the research and stuff. But good questions, keep them coming. But I'm going to try to get through some more of this show here. For the first time this calendar year, I think I'm going to look at last 24 rounds for strokes gained approach, especially because approach generally normalizes quicker than around the green and especially putting. And this will make a little bit more sense once I get into the research at the end of the show. But in the last 24 rounds, so long as it's been this calendar year, Your top iron players at the Masters this year: Colin Morikawa, J.J. Spawn, Scotty, Shane Lowry, Sepp Straka, Xander, J.T., Justin Thomas, Kevin Yu, Nick Taylor, Tommy Fleetwood. And we'll just compare this snapshot very, very quickly. These 10. Just take a quick snapshot because you'll see how it changes if we incorporate all of 2025. Spawn jumps to the top. Spawn, Morikawa, Straka, JT, Scheffler, Lowry, Xander, Tom Hoagie rises. You see, he's got 38 rounds, so we're neglecting 14 rounds from early in 2025 for him. So he jumps up. Fleetwood, Nick Taylor are your top 10. So a lot of the same guys, just the order's different. Another reason why I'm high on Kevin Yu, he falls to 15th when you factor in the entirety of 2025. But he's been red hot lately with the irons. That's one of the big reasons why I like Kevin Yu. He's hitting it really well right now with the irons. I'm just a little scared of Yu's putting on these greens. Absolutely. I mean, that's why he's priced at $6,300. I mean, Kevin Yu is really, really bad. I think he is actually the worst putter statistically in this field. Absolutely. I'm on of the belief that Augusta is a second shot course. Kevin Yu in really good form with the irons right now. It's not like I'm telling you to go out and bet him outright that I think he's going to win the tournament. I just think at 6,300, if he makes one putt, and again, apologies, my camera just doesn't want to cooperate, but I'm holding up one finger. If he can just make one putt this week, I think he'll pay off his 6,300 price because he should be pretty unique. I mean, he did win the Sanderson Farms. I think it was Sanderson Farms. Yeah, he won Sanderson Farms. Yes, that's Bermuda. But, I mean, he gained 8.5 that week. Sanderson Farms is a long course. So he has the length to compete, the irons, all that. So I'm just pretty high on Kevin Yu this week. So anyway, there's a look at your top iron players. We'll look at around the green, your top around the green players this week. Or at least in 2025 that are in the field this week. Hideki, Michael Kim, Minwoo Lee, Sungjae, Seabez, Henley, Yeager, Berger, Brian Campbell, and Patton Kazire are your top 10 around the green. I don't think you had jumped into chat yet, Phil. I don't know if you've noticed or knew Vijay Singh has withdrawn. I highly doubt people were excited to roster him or bet him, but just for your information, Vijay Singh has withdrawn, citing an injury. Last thing we're going to do on this page view, we're definitely going to look at some putting. We're going to be looking at bent putting, specifically lightning bent putting, as these greens have always labeled lightning, at least per Fantasy National. So your top lightning speed bent green putters: McCarthy, Cam Smith, Harris English, Wyndham Clark, Victor Hovland, Keegan, Terrell Hatton, Phil Mickelson, Adam Schenk, and Justin Rose. So a couple of good shouts there from Derek earlier. Phil, always a good putter. Now, granted, it's a very small sample size. But if we take off just the lightning speed putting and just focus on bent, Matt Fitzpatrick, Denny McCarthy, Cam Smith, JT Poston, somebody I always think about when we get into bent putting: Xander, Harris English, Terrell Hatton, Grazerman, Keegan Bradley, and Patrick Reed. You take a look at Phil Mickelson and his performance on bent. He's more of a POA guy just because he's from California, but always a good putter. So, and if we take a look at spike percentages, we'll just take a look at spike percentage on bent greens. Again, we're not going to look at any speed filter here just because there's so few rounds. your top spike putters on bent greens. Højgaard is in 1 of 8 rounds, so don't get too carried away with that. Harris English, Patrick Reed, Wyndham Clark, 11%. McCarthy, no surprise. Max Homa has spiked on bent greens. Ludwig Ober has spiked on bent greens. So there's a few of your best or highest spike putters on bent greens. If you wanted to be technical, you would look at Lightning, but this is such a small sample size for Lightning bent. I don't know how much it's actually going to matter, considering, you know, Phil's at 33% for 6 rounds, 8 rounds, so not as keen on that for the Lightning bent. And while we're talking about putting, this is going to be a pretty big factor. We're going to look at all of 2024 and so far in 2025. I'm actually not going to look at bent. I'm just going to look in totality. I want to see who the best 3-putt avoiders are. Your top 3-putt avoiders, meaning your lag putters, the guys that will man up and make that 5 to 6 footer. Xander, Russell Henley, Seabass, Spawn, Brian Harmon, Sam Burns, Michael Kim, Bobby Mack, good shout there, Phil, Denny McCarthy, and Minwoo Lee. Denny seems like a good cheap price too. I was on him last week. You were following me then, or you had some McCarthy like I did. He had a decent Masters last year, I feel like. He made the cut, made a whole lot of putts, didn't drive it or chip it very well. But now having 1 year of experience under his belt at the Masters, the irons are in decent enough form. Last week, not included. I don't know. It's kind of interesting. A lot will depend, in my opinion, Phil, on what his ownership's like. Because at his price, at 65, there isn't a whole lot around here, I don't think. Kevin Yu, I'm high on at 63. Like, McCarthy, Harris English is kind of interesting at 65. But, you know, are you excited about Max Homa? I'm definitely not. Riley, I'm not. Eckroat, not really. So there isn't a whole lot at 65 or around his price that I would be, you know, terribly excited about. So interesting. There's your top 3-putt avoiders. If you wanted to look at specifically bent, I think this might be a tad too narrow, but your top 3-putt avoiders on bent: Aaron Rye, Henley, English, McCarthy, Olafable, which is, you know, only from the Masters. So be careful with that. Keegan, somebody I'm really high on. Keegan is very, very good on bent. Very good on bent. Keegan's traditionally not a very good putter in his career. He's positive on bent. So somebody I've got my eye on this week: Rose, Reed, Patrick Reed, Xander, and Max Homa. Definitely going Glover. I don't hate that either. Glover's been in, you know, fantastic form, particularly with the irons, and his putter is cooperating at the moment. So that's quite interesting. Top 20 last year. More middling style success in the years prior. That covers the strokes gained and the putting. We'll go to fairways and greens, and again, as I mentioned, it's all about driving distance. So on long courses, when driver is forced into these players' hands, your top distance players: Rory, Minwoo, Bryson, Ben On, Wyndham Clark, Ludwig Ober, Xander, Nikolai Højgaard, Jordan Spieth, a little bit surprising, and Kevin Yu. Here's your top 10 in terms of distance on long courses. We'll take a look at scrambling as well. That's a big part of putting, better way to say that, putting's a big part of scrambling. But we'll take a look at some scrambling. McCarthy, Hideki, Seabez, Scotty, Harris English, Xander, Rory, Willett, Morikawa, Wyndham Clark. I'm more in tune with, say, around the green, 3-putt avoidance. But if you're interested, there's your top scramblers. We'll go to scoring, particularly with when it's we'll do both. We'll start with difficult. I do think the weekend is going to get difficult once the rain, the course dries up in a little bit. But I do think Thursday and Friday will play quite a bit easier. But your top bogey avoiders, when rounds have been difficult relative to par, Scotty, Rory, Ludwig, Xander, Denny McCarthy, Colin Morikawa, Russell Henley, Spawn, Straka, and Max Homa. And then looking at bogey avoidance on long courses. A lot of the same names, I'm sure, just in different order. Xander, McCarthy, Scheffler, Bryson, Rory, Colin Morikawa. Corey Connors creeps his way up here in the top 10 for bogey avoidance when it's on long courses. Akshay Bhatia, Henley, and Rye. Let's take a look at birdies are better. We'll just keep the same filter, long courses. Birdies are better. Rory, Ludwig, Sam Burns, Scotty, Bryson, Keegan, Spieth, Taylor Pendrith. So interesting there. Taylor Pendrith in the top 10 for birdies are better gained on long courses. Sungjae, Ben Thomas Dietrich. And let's take a look at birdies or better when it's difficult. Scotty, Sam Burns, Nick Dunlap, name we haven't said much tonight. Corey Connors, Henley, Rory, Wyndham Clark, Ben Davis Riley, and Shane Lowry. I do want to look at opportunities as well. So I'm going to stick with the long course just because I think Thursday and Friday is going to play extremely long thanks to that forecast. Good evening, Rose. Thanks for jumping in chat. Much appreciated. Hopefully you got some good research in today. How do you feel about where you stand with your Masters picks and any interesting players that you think you got keyed in on? Who do you have tonight? Florida versus Houston. Interested to hear that as well. Thanks for jumping in chat. Very much appreciated. Your top opportunities gained players on long courses. Keegan. Again, another reason why I'm pretty high on Keegan this week. Keegan, Lucas Glover. So good shout there, Phil. Hoagie, Ludwig, McNeely, Rory, Michael Kim, Victor, Xander, and Johnny Vegas. Still looking. No info yet. And when I was going through that top 10 right there, I remembered the comment you made last night that you're from Florida, Rose, but still taking Houston, which, having knocked out Duke, I can't say anything. It should be a good game. I know it's going on right now, but it should be a good game tonight. Could Homa get a top 10? See the key to the $1 million? If you're willing to bank on a guy who simply just has lost it, he's had great course history here. I will give him that. But I mean, the guy has lost it. Missed the cut in 5 straight tournaments. Missed the cut at a limited cut event. I can't do it, Phil. I just can't. I mean, he's lost 5. I mean, this isn't, like the irons betray him for like a 9 or something. Like, he is lost 5, 3.5, 3.5, 5, 6.5. It's really, really bad. The only saving grace was his performance last year, because you see the times that he played the Masters before was pretty bad also. Like, this was his only decent finish in the 5 times he's played it. I can't get there. I can't get there, Phil. I can't recommend it. So there's a look at all the scoring stuff. We're going to skip proximity. I wish we had some proximity figures from the Masters. We might have had it the past maybe couple of years, but it's not much. And in fact, it's probably going to be quicker if we do this. So, proximity. Yeah. See, all that stuff is proprietary. We do have some strokes gained. So I need to, and this is just honesty from my end, I need to incorporate what few or what little data we have in terms of strokes gained now that we're getting it for a couple years. So that's my apologies on that. But nothing to do with proximities. So my guess is you're wanting to look at some of these longer proximities, especially for Thursday and Friday, because it's going to be so soft that you're not going to get any rollout. Guys are going to be hitting long irons or maybe even woods into these greens, would be my guess, is what you want to focus on. So instead, we're going to skip par 3s as well. We're going to go straight to the par 4s. We saw in Excel that par 3s just kind of didn't matter. So your top par 4 performers, and again, we're focused on these two ranges here, specifically the 400, 450, 450 to 5. Scotty, first in both. I'm not a mathematician, but I think it's pretty difficult to beat that. Let me know if you can. I think it's pretty hard to beat that. Xander's good in both. Colin Morikawa. Rory, surprisingly, has struggled on these kind of shorter par 4s. He's taken advantage of the longest of par 4s, but interesting to see that. Rye, Lowry, Henley top 10 in both. Seabez has been really good on the shorter par 4s, not so much the longer ones. Bryson, very small sample size, but top 20 in both. Brooks, top 20 essentially in both. So there's a few of the names for the par 4s. Par 5s, we're looking at these two ranges. Again, Scotty, first in both. Cantley, 12th and 3rd. JT, top 10 in both. Other than that, doesn't look like a whole lot of honorable mentions. Guys have kind of struggled have excelled in one and been, kind of just good to mediocre in the other. Honorable mention probably to Taylor Pendrith and Billy Horschel, to be fair to them. Top 25 in both. 12th hole par 3 is a hard hole. Very. It's a very hard hole, but I'll just show it to you just very, very quickly since you jumped into chat late. I mean, historically, Rose, it just hasn't. That would be the range of par 3s. But you see, it just hadn't added a whole lot over the years in terms of strokes gained. It just hasn't. It's been mostly in these par 4s, 450 to 500. I just go by the data. That's what it's showing. Like, the par 3s haven't added a whole lot. You are right, Rose. It would be this range of par 3s if we wanted to look at it. But I just don't see much here. Instead, we're kind of more... Look, the par 4 is 400 to 450. This, over the years, has been just as much, essentially, as all of the par 3s, Rose. That's why I just don't see a whole lot in here. That, when I say I don't see a whole lot in there, I don't see a whole lot to dedicate the mixed condition model to. Because, we're going to want to have some 3-putt avoidance in there. We're going to want to have a whole lot of around the green, iron play. Like, I just don't foresee having the 5% available, because that's all I would put into this range of par 3 or total par 3s in general, considering these are demanding more in terms of strokes gained. Hoagie might be the obvious pick right in front of our eyes, at least first round leader. He's He was close to first round leader, what was it, last week or 2 weeks ago? You want to talk about a guy on second shot, on approach courses, second shot courses. I mean, he's played well. He actually was good around the green. Now, the issue with Tom Hoge is his Masters performance has been very, very poor. Miscut in a T39. He's not been very good here at Augusta National, and a lot of that is with that off the tee. He's neither long nor particularly accurate, and bent is by far his worst putting surface. He hadn't putt well here either. I understand the logic behind it, Phil, behind thinking that. He just hasn't been good here. And until a guy actually shows that he likes Augusta, I generally tend to stay away. You have to take some chances. That's why I'm, fairly high on Kevin Yu, because he's a debutant. I do think the course fits him. But until somebody like Max Homa, I was completely off of Max Homa last year, despite him being in good form when he came to the Masters last year, because he had never played well at the Masters. Then he top 5. So if that means I miss on Hoge, I'll miss on Hoge. But he just hadn't been good here. Okay. We went through all of that. Feel free to keep the questions coming. But I had Hoge last week. I'm off this week. I played more Hoge than I wanted to last week, and it ended up working out for me. Rose, that was part of the reason why I had such a big week. I had many lineups with Gerard, Hoge, McCarthy. There was somebody else that was top 5 or kind of up there that I was on. So it was just a really, really good week. Despite me only having Brian Harman once, it was still a great week because I had all the, generally the right combination of guys. And I have to admit, Hoge was a part of that. Okay. Feel free to keep the questions coming on specific players or anything like that. But I'm going to start rounding the show off with looking at some of this research that led to what I posted over on social media. So we'll start with the winner matrix. The performance of Masters champions in the years leading up to their win. Going all the way back to 2012 and Bubba Watson's win. So Bubba Watson didn't really have a whole lot of success, at least that I could gather, before winning and then winning again. Adam Scott had a lot of success. Jordan Spieth finished runner-up and then wins, so he had a lot of success. Bubba Watson and Danny Willett are kind of the outliers. Danny Willett only played it once. He finished T38, which wasn't great, but at least he had some level of success, then wins. Sergio, despite him, never seeming to come through in the clutch, had some success. Top 15, top 10, top 20. Patrick Reed even had a top 25. So I want you to notice every single one of these past champions, other than Danny Willett, and I guess technically Bubba Watson, every single one of these past champions had a previous top 25. And in a lot of cases, multiple top 25s. Previously at the Masters, so they've had success. That's another reason why I'm not so big on Hoge. He hasn't had a whole lot of success here. What do you think of Hovland? You will be for sure the least owned 9K. Got him in big 100. Do we think he's going to be the least owned in the 9s? Do we know that for a fact? Bryson's probably going to get some steam, but do you think people are really going to believe in Xander with the injuries and how he hadn't played all that much? He top 15 the Valspar, but he hadn't shown anything in the first 2. I don't know if I agree with that, Phil, that he's going to be the surefire least owned. He'll probably be second, but I could see Xander getting squeezed in terms of ownership. Hideki coming off a miscut. Do we think people are going to believe in Hideki coming off 2 miscuts, technically? I don't know. I don't know if Hovland is the for sure pivot. He might be, but I don't know. I mean, coming off of his win, in which he looked much, much more like Victor Hovland. I'm just saying, I can't. I really don't think he's going to be the most unique in the 9Ks. I think he'll be one of them. I think Xander, Hideki. Again, I don't know what Brooks or Neiman have done on Live. I don't follow Live. So, if Brooks or Joaquin Neiman haven't played well lately, they might not get a lot of ownership. Although, it's a major. People are probably going to play Brooks. Tommy's just a very popular player. He'll be owned. You can ask Derek about that one. Tommy's just a popular player. And I think Spieth's probably shown enough that he'll get some ownership. So I just don't think he'll be the most unique. As far as my general thoughts on Hovland, I'm worried about this still. Because at Augusta, you have to be very tidy around the green. You just do. And Hovland's just not, clearly. He has that one top 10 a couple years ago. But otherwise, his Masters performance has been fairly mediocre. Top 25 and a top 30. Tommy will be on with you right back on the wagon. Hey. Yeah, I don't blame you, I guess. I mean, it makes a lot of sense, but he did finish almost DFL of the players that made the cut last week, so I am going to give you a little bit of grief there, Derek. He didn't miss the cut, so I can't completely, shout you out and call you out for it, but he was really bad over the weekend. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about Victor. I hate to use that cop-out answer, Phil, but I really don't. My initial lean is I'm not really all that excited about it. But if he comes in at such an astronomically low ownership, then, I'd probably try to find a way to get him into a lineup if he's low enough owned. But my first thought is I wouldn't be excited about it. So, yeah. One of the first things that I looked for was Masters performance. You hear it all the time. I've been a big fan of Fairway Jesus. He's been playing very, very well this past weekend notwithstanding. You've heard it all week. I'll just reinforce it for you. Previous performance at the Masters generally dictates future success. It is the most predictive course on the PGA Tour by quite a bit. So look for players who have had, at least an amount of success. Obviously, the more the better. But like even Patrick Reed only had one top 25, but he at least had a top 25. He at least had an amount of success. Something else that I want to really, really emphasize to you all. What is going on here? There we go. That was weird. Something else that I want to emphasize to you all. Look for players in great form. I'm not talking good form. I'm talking great form. Scotty. No explanation needed. Had a couple of wins. Several top 10s. John Rahm, before he went to Live in 2023, had 3 wins. A couple of more top 10s. Scotty in 2022, winner of the API, winner at the Waste Management. But even he had another top 10 and another top 20. Hideki in 2021, while he didn't have any other wins, 3 top 20s. He had been in contention. Tiger in 2019, top 10, top 15, top 20. The one outlier to this is Danny Willett. But even he had a top 5. Good evening, P. Thanks for jumping in chat. Much appreciated. Catching the end of the show this evening. Hopefully you're ready for Masters Week. Hopefully you've had a good Valero as well. Very much appreciated that you take the time to to jump into chat and to watch the show. Can't get off Sungjae. Think I might have a problem. What I can tell you is once I go through all these criteria, Phil, there were 7 players, 7, that I had found that fit all the criteria. Sungjae wasn't one of them. So not only do you need to look for previous Masters success, look for guys who have had multiple, and I'm talking multiple, top 20s. I know Danny Willett only had 1, but he did have a top 5, and he also had a top 25. But literally every other champion had multiple high finishes. Top 10s, top 15s. Going all the way back to Bubba. So that's the second thing that I noticed. Don't beat me to the punchline, Derek. I'll get there. In fact, we can have a little bit of fun. If you want to try to guess who some of those players are, put them in the chat. Because I put the 7 out on social media. The 7 are listed over on social media, but I'll list them, tonight. But if you want to have some fun, try to guess them. Because I'm guaranteeing you're going to miss a couple. I was shocked by a couple of them. So those are the first 2. Previous success at the Masters, great form, and I mentioned it earlier. Let's look at the form of the irons. Maybe not necessarily the immediate form. This is the tournament they played right before the Masters, so they didn't necessarily need to come in off of their previous tournament. But let's look at their form in terms of irons coming in generally. Scotty had only was only negative in 1. John Rahm was on fire with the irons. Even Scotty, when he didn't have a very good players, lost 4 the tournament before he won the Masters, but he had been in really good iron form lately. This is why I only looked at the past 24 rounds as opposed to the entirety of 2025 when we looked at irons, because these former champions have had excellent iron form. And I'm talking excellent. Even Tiger, 2019, lost 4 with the irons the tournament before the Masters, but he had a lot of success with the irons. Patrick Reed, probably the least, but he's not known for his irons. He's much more of a short game player, and he was really good with the short game. But you see just how good the irons have been for these former champions. So look for great iron form in the recency. Doesn't have to be in the most recent tournament. Sungjae has the 3rd worst strokes gained approached. Yep. That's why I'm not terribly excited about him, Phil. Because he has been pretty poor with his irons so far in 2025. Only gained twice at the Amex and the Cognizant. The Farmers and the Cognizant. He's been really bad otherwise. That's why I'm not terribly excited about Sungjae this week, Derek. Which means he's probably going to be unique. That's the one benefit. But I would argue that there's a good reason he's unique. Spawn, Rory, Scotty, Morikawa, Minwoo, JT, Patrick Cantlay. You got 2. Only 2. Scotty actually does not qualify this year. For a reason that I'm getting ready to show you. Look at the form in their most recent tournament around the green. All but one of these previous champions gained around the green in their most recent tournament. All but one gained in driving distance in their most recent tournament. So be mindful of that as well. They need to be in really good recent around the green form as well. And they're generally bigger hitters. So throws my laptop. I thought it was close. So the 3, you might have 3. I know Rory makes that list and Minwoo Lee makes that list. I can't remember if Spawn does as well or not. I don't think he does. Spawn would be the other. Morikawa doesn't. I know Patrick Cantlay and Justin Thomas don't. And the surprise is Scotty. Scotty doesn't. So yeah, there's a look at what you want to take in terms of wagers. Be very mindful of past success. Be mindful of extremely good recent form, like multiple top 15s this calendar year. Make sure the irons have been good. Maybe not necessarily the last time out, but have been good in this calendar year. They're in great recent around the green form, and they generally hit it a long way. That's what cost Morikawa, is that he's generally not a long hitter. He's not generally, he's just not a long hitter. Despite the fact that he's had a lot of success here. I think Michael Kim might be a good play then. Perhaps. So I'm gonna forget a couple, but in no particular order. Actually, you know what? I'll just show it. Why not? So if you want to really truly know the 7, here they are: Corey Connors, Jason Day, Keegan, Minwoo Lee, Rory, Shane Lowry, Tony Finau. Those are the 7 that fit the criteria that I talked about. Again, I don't collect live statistics. So if any of these live players have been playing well on live, I won't know. But there are the criteria. I said 2 top 15s in the calendar year. At least 2 top 15s. Again, Danny Willett was a slight outlier there, but he at least had a top 5. They had a previous top 25 at the Masters. They made the cut at their last event. That was an important one. That knocked out like Ludwig Ober. That knocked out Hideki. None of these former champions at the Masters missed the cut in their previous event. Now, yes, some of these were signature events or what do they used to call them? WGCs and stuff where it was an invitational style field. But they didn't miss the cut. So that was another criteria. They made the cut. Oh, that was one that I forgot. I apologize. So we go back to the winner matrix. All but one of these former champions made the cut at at the previous year's Masters. The one exception is Patrick Reed. But every one of these other champions made the cut at the previous year's Masters. So that knocked out a few people. That knocked out Jordan Spieth. That knocked out Justin Thomas, because they both missed the cut last year at the Masters. That knocked out maybe 1 or 2 other names. Surprised Jason Day, since I didn't think his form was that great this year. That was the one that really surprised me, Derek, was Jason Day. But if you look at it, if you actually take a long look, he didn't gain his last time out with the irons, but generally speaking, his irons have been pretty good. Pretty good this year. We all know he's a decent enough putter. He's generally pretty good around the green. Gained his last time out. His irons have been okay. He had a 3rd at the Amex, top 15, the Pebble Beach, the Pro-Am signature event. He also top 10 the Arnold Palmer. He hadn't been as bad as people think, and he gained distance his last time out. He generally doesn't gain distance, as you can see, but he did gain distance his last time out. So that's how he made it. But good question, because he was the one that shocked me the most as well. I figured Connors would. Lowry's been playing great. I'm a little surprised by Finau, but Finau actually made it because he's got some previous Masters success as well. My biggest surprises were Jason Day, qualifying or making it, and Scotty not. But if you want to take a look at the full picture, this is where people kind of stop. So like Aaron Rai doesn't have a top 25 at the Masters. There's Colin Morikawa. He stopped because he didn't gain in his distance his last time out. Scotty, is around here somewhere. Scotty didn't get... Surprisingly, Scotty didn't gain distance at Houston. He was negative to the field in distance, which was quite surprising. So anyway, those are the 7, and I listed that over on social media. Connors, Day, Keegan, Minwoo Lee, Rory, Lowry, and Finau, based on these criteria that I have found. That is by no means an all-encompassing thing. There's a lot of great research out there. You know, don't take my word as gospel. Go find other information. There's a lot of it out. There's a lot of great information out there. I'm just trying to help you, or I'm just trying to show you what I found during my research. Tommy just missed. He didn't gain distance, but you know he has 2 top 15s this year. Has a previous top 25 at the Masters. Made the cut. He missed out on the literal last thing. He didn't gain distance his last time out. Like if we don't factor in the distance, then you're going to include Billy Horschel. You're going to include Ben On, Colin Morikawa, Daniel Berger, Harris English, Lucas Glover, Bobby Mack, Russell Henley, Scotty, and Tommy. They all stopped at not gaining distance their last time out. Anyway, that's what I have in terms of a show for you all. I'll bring us to this where it's the specific performance at the Masters. That's going to be it for the show this evening. Went a little bit over time, but great questions. Hopefully I helped you all out. I want to thank Derek, Phil, Rose, and P for jumping into chat. Very, very much appreciated. Thanks to everyone else out there who tunes in, watches, listens, supports the channel by liking the videos, commenting, and subscribing. Always appreciate it. Love what I do. Taking a very in-depth look at golf statistics, giving you a statistician's view of what he sees, trying to help us all win a little bit of money in the process. I've had 2 great weeks back-to-back. We're going to try to make it 3 for the Masters. So thanks again for all the support, for all of the wagers you've made so far this week for the Masters, for all the wagers you're thinking about making this week for the Masters. And until I see you Wednesday night for the DFS Tactics show, may all your bets be profitable.